I was raised by a strong single mother who always worked hard to give food, water, and shelter. I would later learn in life that she was essentially the top of her class in Haiti, and that she had been, so much promised. She was invited to America at the time, when she was like in high school. And that's like a big thing when you're outside the country, people get invited to America. And she was just that person. But if you had met her now, or even during the time of my upbringing, you would have never guessed that that was a part of her story. That she was the top of her class, that she was the one, most likely to succeed, so to speak, right? In her family of more than 10 other siblings, and in her country and nation, right? In the region, because she was at the top high school. Because essentially, while I was growing up, my mother had never broken more than $36,000 a year in her annual wages. And she was helping people, she was the one who was helping mentally disabled adults travel around the city. She was in nursing homes, right? And she never broke more than $36,000 a year. But we always had food, water, and shelter. And I remember for me, I never got her fascination. She always wanted a house and wanted to travel to Paris. Those were things that sort of would pop up every now and again. And I remember for me, I was like, when I grow up, I just want to keep it simple. Keep it simple. I just want to keep it simple. Just a nice little house, nice little thing with jiggy, I don't need anything big or fancy. And then one summer, this was during my university years now, fast forward. And one summer I was essentially staying on campus in grad student housing. And I was doing also research assisting as well, because I was pre-med at the time, wanted to boost up the resume. And I remember I was at the Whole Foods downtown. This is in Palo Alto. That's Whole Foods. There's Whole Foods and Trader Joe's, right? And so I was at the Whole Foods, and I remember got into an aisle, right? So I'd done some shopping already, and I got to an aisle, and the aisle I was like looking at the cereal options, and I was like, okay, we have Raisin Bran, name brand, then we have Raisin Bran, not name brand. Okay, we got Honey Nut Cheerios name brand, Honey Nut Cheerios not name brand. And I remember essentially battling with myself and standing there for just looking at, but it's $1 difference. That's so much. Oh, it's going to mess with my budget. OMG. I was looking at the ounces and the pounds and doing math in my head. And then on the walk back to the sublet apartment, there was just it was a little bit this uncomfortable feeling of just like, oh, did I really just have a conversation and debate on my head about $1? Did $1 really influence my decision? Yes. Yes, it did. And I remember during that walk home saying, yeah, no, that's not going to happen again. And that's when I realized the power and the reason, right, of choices. I wanted to have more. That moment on, I realized I wanted to have the ability and the possibility to have more choices, to be able to support my goals and my plan. Right. And later on, that would include, wanting to buy my mother a house, wanting to take her on a trip, wanting to, have the freedom for myself to decide to get, Cheerios and the Raisin Bran that I wanted, essentially at the end of the day. And I remember when I was 8 years old, I had this moment of, at the time, I was in Brooklyn, New York at the time. And I remember I was sitting in my bed, watching my TV, what I usually do. And there was this one week where, and news work repeat stories, right? But those put like trends with stories. And there was this one week where there were, I saw, okay, this kid got shot in the playground. This kid is missing. This kid, another kid in the hospital, urgent care. And it was all these stories of children who are my age, right? And ended up in the hospital, ended up dying or missing or unknown what they were happening to them. And I remember sitting in that bed thinking to myself, oh, that could be me. Yeah. Okay. And so I was 8 years old, I started thinking to myself, okay, well, if my funeral was to happen, what would it look like? Well, I was like, well, maybe my mother would come out of obligation. I was like, oh, she'll come out of obligation. She'll probably take the time off work, just come out of obligation. But would anyone else come? And I started thinking about my friends and how like their families would probably have them, staying in school or whatever and all that jazz. And I started thinking about, okay, let's say I grew up and lived to be old. What would I want my funeral to actually look like? And in that moment, it was in that moment that I then had the vision that I will always remember, even to this day, and probably continue to remember. But that moment of what do I want my funeral to look like? And what I wanted to look like was essentially, okay, there are people who are, who ride or die with me for like 30, 40, 50, 60 years, right? always there, right? And then you would have the people in the funeral who they didn't know. And I remember envisioning at 8 years old at the funeral that the people who knew me, like, over and over and over again, right? Like forever and ever and ever, they would meet this person who like was a stranger, and they would say, "Oh, how do you know Vanessa?" They would exchange like, "How do you know Vanessa? How do you know Vanessa?" Like, "Oh yeah, I grew up with her. She's great." Da da da. Right, with one person, another person would say, "I didn't know her personally, but X X X X X, she impacted my life." And it was in that moment that I realized that, and I made the decision, I want to be that person where people take the time out of their day to just pay their respects, right? Because you impacted them in some way because I impacted them in some way, shape, or form. And even if it was just one person, I said just one person that took the time out of their day to come over, fly over, whatever it is, to pay their respects. And I recall that, so that was essentially what I wanted to do, right? I was just like, okay, I want to help people. I want to make a difference. At the same time, I just want options and possibilities and opportunities. Now, I tried many different ways to get this happen. So I started working when I was 13 years old. And that was essentially mainly because my mother provided food, water, and shelter. I didn't want to have to stress her out about asking her for any more items. So I said, I'm going to get myself a job and we're going to make it work, right? And so I ended up paying for my own phone, getting my own phone bill. And so I did that at 13 years old. I was like, cool. I started working in a nonprofit system and was working for nonprofits and, in arts, health, education, being a mentor, tutor, helping out the community, social justice, doing good for the community. But then I also had learned about the broken system of the nonprofit world. At the same time, I wanted to be a nurse surgeon as well. I was like, okay, I'm going to also be a nurse surgeon at the same time. So I went into university, was pre-med, was going to be a nurse surgeon. It's a whole 13-year route and plan, because I also wanted to be chief as well too. And so I was like, great, I'm going to be a nurse surgeon. Cool. I made it through organic chemistry. It was amazing. It was awesome. Lovely. But then I realized there are other ways to help people. I want to be a nurse surgeon to help people. And I was like, okay, that doesn't seem like a good enough reason to want to do that. And I was like, I want to help people one life at a time. But it's sort of like, okay, there may be other ways to help people. So I went to a career fair. Then I ended up in corporate America. And I ended up going to a consulting workshop. And that's when I learned about consulting. And I was like, oh, they just solve problems all day? That's what I do. That's what I've been doing all my life. Let me go solve problems all day. And I was like, woo, I was like amazed. I was a whole new world, another whole new world just entered into my life. I was like, yes, okay, cool. I'm going to go into the for-profit space. And not only am I going to go into it, but I'm going to master it so that I can then bring that back to the nonprofits, right? And help them fix their systems. And so then I ended up consulting world. And I remember my first job out of university was 2.5 times as much as my mother will ever make bigger. Right? I was like, yes, I made it. Woot woot. Yes, first generation. I got the money. Woot woot woot. Right? Happiness is awaiting me and helping people, and it's great. 3 months into corporate, I had a panic attack. That was the first time. I still stayed though. And the reason why the panic attack happened is because I'd done all this research, informational interviews, talking to people beforehand, asking them about, what is life in consulting? What am I going to do day to day, all that jazz. And I was like, great. I was ready to go into it. And then 3 months in, realized that there was a disconnect between what was actually happening and what people said was going to happen. Okay. And that's when the panic attack happened. And really, it was a moment. At the time, I was living in San Francisco, California. And I was it was around 4 or 5 in the morning. I was sleeping, and I essentially woke up. And it was that moment when you wake up and you realize that you've been dreaming the entire time and you're like waking up into the real world. And I just didn't want to wake up to the real world. I was like, keep me in bed. I was like, eyes stay shut, go back into the dream. Like, do not wake up. And that's what had happened. And the thing is that at the time, while I was in corporate, while I was like traveling and around for my first company, I was traveling around the world, with different companies, nuclear manufacturing and consumer packaged goods, learning all this stuff, getting introduced to different industries, different business departments, helping them make more money and help their employees be better and all the things. And it was a great life, right? Getting miles and points. I was, Michelin star restaurants, and like other people were paying for it, not me. And it was great. It was awesome. Great life. But then I had bad bosses. Then another bad boss. Then I had some good boss. Then I had another bad boss. And then I talked to my coworkers about this, and they also were in a similar position. And it was sort of the state of not really, it was really just a miserable state. Like, it was like, yes, on the one end, oh yeah, great travel, woo, 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 life is good, woo. And the other end, it was just uh, sort of like slowly deteriorating in a way, kind of like misery in a sense. And then, but it wasn't just me. It was also like my coworkers as well too. And I was to speak to my friends who worked at other companies, and describe my experience, and they'll be like, yeah, that's just the way it is. Kind of like was their response. I was like, yeah, that's just the way it is, right? And I said, then I was like, okay, well maybe it's not corporate America. Maybe it's just like the company I was working for. And so after about like 2 years of working with that company, it's like, okay, well, it's another company. So it's another company, great culture, amazing, right? Because of course I'm always trying to go for the happiness, right? And so just having possibilities and opportunities, like great culture, fantastic. Then I had the narcissistic boss, the boss who was competing with me, the boss who was taking credit for my ideas, and this wasn't a gender thing, it wasn't a race thing. He had 3 different direct reports. All of us were different. He was doing the same thing for all of us all, right? And unfortunately, he also was a leader who didn't want to become a better leader because he didn't really actually want to take feedback as well too. And so there was sort of just like, he was just bad. It was just awful. And I would tell my peers again about this experience at my peers at other companies, former coworkers, and they would just say, they'll just shrug, like, yeah, you just gotta work with it and deal with it. And and by the time my salary had to reach 3 times the amount that my mother will ever make at all, right? And so I'm continuing the increase in salary, and I'm just dealing with this like miserable boss, and I'm just like, this something just doesn't feel right. Something just doesn't feel right. And I was very, very unhappy and confused, and just like kind of like jaded, and like what is this? And then there was a moment where I realized, wait, I have to deal with this for another like 40 years, assuming the retirement age stays the same. Excuse me? Pardon me? And then I remember even just looking at my coworkers and how they were also in a state of misery, and not really, also like they were also in a state like my current company, they're also in a state where either they were talking about a boss that was bad, or they were themselves a boss that was being talked about by other people. And I was just like, what is this life and world? And I just couldn't understand how people were choosing to sort of just go with the bad flow, right? What I later call like dealing with the Mondays, and just be like, oh yeah, it's Monday. Like this routine of like, oh, it's Monday. Yay, Wednesday, hump day, we're almost there. And then Friday, oh thank goodness it's Friday, it's the weekend. And then Monday will come again. It'll be like the same pattern. I was like, how is that a way to live life? I could not understand it. And I remember I was just like, okay, you know what? We're just gonna play chess. We're just gonna navigate, work with people, work with what we got. Cause that's just because I knew I didn't want to do nonprofit. I already said no to pre-med. And I was like, cool, we're gonna work with the for-profit space. Right? Great. Awesome. And but I remember again, I'm still trying to live life of joy and options and possibilities. And just bettering myself, and like bettering my family as well too in the process, right? To get my mother the dreams that she wanted. And I remember just being like, but still something wasn't working. And at some point I was very much like, what? Just, if this is it, like, no, thank you. Like, I don't, like, if this is the life, like, no, thank you. And I said, there was a moment when I realized that, it's just why bother? And that's when the moment Rich Dad Poor Dad came into my lap. Rich Dad Poor Dad book by Robert Kiyosaki. Now, Robert himself is a different type of person, but the book is amazing. And Rich Dad Poor Dad was my sort of like, I read that book and I was like, yes, the answers. It was like the Bible. It's like, whoa! I was amazed. My eyes lit up. I was just like, oh my gosh, everyone should know about this. Why do not more people know about this? Right? It took me like 2 months to read it, because I was reading it on the train, my hour and a half commute to and from work. But it was, when I could get a seat in the crowded train, the rush hour. And I remember reading that book and I was like, oh my gosh, this is it. This is the life, like business and investing. Why don't more people know about this, right? And I did the wealth exercise for myself. And I was like, OMG. And then there was a Sunday morning when I woke up, and it was like a whole new world for me. And I remember I woke up on a Sunday morning, grabbed my laptop, I started typing away furiously, just like, oh yeah, woo, woo, right? 3 hours later, I looked up from my laptop. I looked around my room. This point in time, I'm living in Oakland, California now. I looked from my laptop, looking around the room, look back at my laptop. looked up again. I was like, what just happened? I was in a trance. That's what happened. I was in a trance. So I looked back at my laptop. Eurovision Catalyst had been born. I had written out my business plan for Eurovision Catalyst, and the stages of the business I would help people in, and the pain points I perceived that they had. At its essence, it was my purpose I had defined way back when in 2012 to share information and resources with people so they become better versions of themselves. That was my purpose I had identified back when I was at university. And, the purpose that I realized was guiding light to my life was like, I would get information and insights. And I want to share that with other people, right? Or because I want them to also have the information as well, too. All about accessibility, all about ensuring that people had what they needed to keep moving forward. So naturally, it made sense that when I read Rich Dad Poor Dad, and I learned about this whole new world that for some reason was not told to me prior, that for some reason did not seem like it was accessible. But I read that book and I was like, oh my God, like regular people on laundromats? America runs on business? What? And it was just this whole other world that I was like, yes, I want to ensure that everyone is living in the business world, right? And they're able to have their own small business. They're being solopreneurs. They're being entrepreneurs. They're making a difference in their community, their city, their state, the country, the world. But at the same time, defining their own income, defining the way that they live as well, right? And it sort of put together the common thread that I saw amongst the people, amongst my peers and my coworkers that I had at the time, where you would see that it was always that person who, they really knew how to paint really well. So they would do it on the side of the job and it helped make them happy, but they still kept doing this day job thing that made them miserable. Or you had the person, like everyone sort of had a special talent or skill. The person talked about, way back when I wanted to do this, but then I ended up here. And I've just been here for the last 20 years because why not? Right. And it was sort of this, everyone just had always had a vision and a dream that they were striving for, even my mother. Right. But they somehow, some way, something happens to get them off that track of making their vision happen. Something happened to get them off that track. And I said, what if I could reach someone before, perhaps the people who already like got off the track, perhaps they're lost. I don't think they are, but let's say that. But what if that person, right before they decide to quit on their vision, right when they're either in the beginning where they're deciding to whether or not to start, or right when they, they've tried it and something just isn't working for them, and then right before they decide whether or not they're going to quit on the business, what if I could touch them then? What if I can then help them to catalyze their vision? What if I can then help them to really keep moving forward in that path and give them the information and resources that they needed to keep going, right? To go forth in what it is that's going to lead to their true happiness and their time freedom, to leading them to have the options and possibilities and opportunities to like make things happen for themselves, right? And for their family. And I remember at the time, I'd done Fortune 500 consulting. I had been working for a multi-billion-dollar company. By the time that I got in business, it was I got promoted, so 6-figure salary by that time. And so I was like, okay, I'm gonna take these like consulting strategy things that I help big companies with. I'm apply it to the small business owners and the solopreneurs and the people who are just trying to make something happen, make something work out of their vision and their mission and their purpose, right? And so I remember I described it to a friend, and after I had my epiphany moment that Sunday morning, like 2 weeks later, she came to town to visit from Chicago, and I described it to her, and she's like, "Oh, you help people get themselves together." Yep, sounds about right. That's what you do, Vanessa. And I was like, "Great, awesome, glad it ties into my life, right?" And so everything just sort of like fitting into place, right? Everything sort of fitting into place, and I remember that I kept my day job at the time. Right, for those who don't know, I did get my day job while doing my business. I've since left it, but essentially, I kept my day job while doing my business because for me, it was I had other people to take care of, other people on my expense line item to take care of, including my mother. And so I was like, okay, you know what? We're gonna keep the day job. We're gonna make it happen. So I disagreed with in the book Rich Dad Poor Dad was the idea that you had to like go homeless and burn all the bridges and like and that's the only way. The whole glamorization of homelessness. I'd already been low income upgrading. I made it to middle class. I'm not going to go backwards in order to no. And so for me, it was also like a matter of, you know what? Some of the reasons why people are saying that they can't make it happen is because they're like, well, I don't have the time, or I'm doing some day job thing, right? And sort of this either or mindset. And it's probably the reason why when I was telling my peers, this boss thing is bad, no one decided to mention, oh, there's also this other route as well too, right? Or no one even thought for a lot of it for themselves as something that they could do. right? And so I decided to keep my day job and do my business, and figured I would use my principle: keep it simple, keep it moving. That's my motto. And because essentially in corporate world, you probably experience this, right? People make things complicated. A 30-minute phone call from a that could have been like a 30-second email, right? And so in business world, people do the same thing. In life, people do the same thing, making things complicated. And so I decided I would essentially be more efficient with my business, keeping it simple, right? And finding ways to streamline how to make it work. And through that, I was able to see the growth in my business, right? While at the same time, getting promoted at work, while at the same time, right, averaging sleep 7 to 9 hours of sleep a night. I released a best-selling book at the same time, doing the work that I loved and still love, right, with people who I appreciate, right? And, got people reaching out to me now via DMs, asking to work with me. And the thing is that I know I'm the best solution, right, to catalyze your vision. I know I'm the best solution to work with people to help revive their business, right, to get them to that point of not quitting, but not only not quitting, but actually having the tools and resources that they need to pivot with success, right? To pivot with success and get to that next level. And I've been able to help other clients as well do the same, from nonprofit to for-profit clients, from brick and mortar to online e-commerce businesses, from people in the US to people in Cameroon and Switzerland and Canada and Australia, right? And so being able to help my clients as well too have this life where they are having the option and opportunity, and they are moving forward in their business and their vision. And by no means am I at my end goal of my $10 billion empire with multifamily apartment buildings and helping communities and spreading the message. Well, I'm still spreading the message actually. But I was able to, take my mother out on a trip to Martha's Vineyard, right? Mother and sister actually, on a trip to Martha's Vineyard a few summers ago. And that was amazing. Just being able to have the opportunity and have the option to do that, right? And being able to help my clients along the way. But really, what I found most valuable at the same time as well too was that whole thing of, when I was 8 years old and I said to myself, and I realized at that moment that I wanted to just make a difference, right? And just have someone just help people in a way that really got them to say, you know what, that should really just change their life for the better. And through Eurovision's Catalyst, I've been able to do that for people. And I will continue doing that for people as well too. Through Eurovision's Catalyst, through other things that I do with my empire as well. And before, really it's just helping those people die with regret. My mission with Eurovision's Catalyst is to equip and empower ambitious solopreneurs to keep moving forward on their vision. So when that fateful day comes, they can say they lived their life without any shoulda, coulda, or woulda. And really helping those people die with regret. And I'm already on the way to do that, right? I've already helped people do that. And we'll continue doing that with my existing clients currently, as well as future clients in the realm as well too, with Eurovision's Catalyst and with all things that I do. And it's just been such a beautiful ride. And before I get into how you can put the you back into your business, because BU, right? BUSI. We put the you back into your business. This is a weekly show. Entrepreneurship is a marathon. And yes, as someone mentioned, I see someone put a comment here, right? It's okay to keep the 9 to 5, just don't have a 9 to 5 mindset. Work your plan so you can go full-time as an entrepreneur. Exactly, right? And that is essentially what I have done and what I did. And such, I've since left my day job for those who missed that. I've been, I had my day job for at least over a year now. And it's been a great sort of journey, right? And growing my business while doing my day job and making that transition, help my clients as well too, right? And really it's a matter of having the right plan, having a strategic, efficient plan when you're making that happen. So entrepreneurship is a marathon. Before I dive into now, how you can also do that journey for yourself. This is a weekly show. So I'm taking a momentary break, get my energy back up. Welcome to Entrepreneurship is a Marathon every Tuesday, 9 p.m. Eastern with yours truly, Vanessa Zammy. You heard my story in the beginning, and now you're probably wondering why this show? Why am I still doing this show after episode 395? And it's because, no matter if you're watching this episode, or the episodes prior, or the episodes in the future, maybe someone shared this episode with you and you're saying to yourself, maybe you came across this on my YouTube channel, right? If you haven't already subscribed, subscribe below. And maybe you're probably thinking to yourself, what is this show about, right? Well, here's a 30-second summary to get you going. My name is Vanessa Zammy, the best-selling author of Finish, the Solopreneur's Guide Getting Stuff Done. I'm the creator of the Hustle and Breathe Business Accelerator, through which I consult ambitious 9-to-5ers like you on how to grow their profit-producing, purpose-driven business without the overwhelm. Your efficiency, your productivity, and profitability, so that you can reduce the overwhelm and confusion in your life. You can enjoy your life. Entrepreneurship is a marathon. And if you've chosen to step into that marathon, Yes, let's go. Let's go. Let's go. So, what has been your win of the week? Share your story right in the comments. What has been your win of the week that you want to celebrate? And I have a special announcement. So, I believe I know some things about you and your current situation. I know that you're frustrated, you're overwhelmed, you're struggling, you're discouraged, right? You dream of becoming a calm and confident full-time entrepreneur with abundant time and financial freedom. Currently, perhaps you're focused on leaving your demanding corporate job and growing your business. Or maybe you're just focused on just growing your business, right? But let me ask you a question. Would you be ecstatic if you could increase your revenue, be more consistent with your marketing and social media, and get more time to work on your business and be more productive? Because if you could do those things, ultimately, that would mean you can make a difference in your community, city, state, country, or world while having more freedom to do what you want when you want, which would be amazing. Unfortunately, I also get the sense that there are some roadblocks for you here as well, including figuring out how to get more exposure and visibility about your business, how to clarify and define your next ultimate direction, how to separate your business and personal life. Sound familiar? Another thing, are you also really frustrated by the fact that there just isn't enough time to do everything that you want to do? You don't know what direction or next steps to take. And Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, TikTok, Clubhouse, just social media in general, right? Just feels like yelling into an abandoned building. Plus, you constantly ask yourself any of these questions. How do I increase my sales next quarter? How do I increase my sales next year? How do I get more of the right clients and customers? How do I use social media to grow an online presence? And maybe perhaps you found yourself recently saying to yourself, as you reflect on this past year of your business, just saying, social media just sucks up time and money and doesn't produce results. Or I don't have enough time. Or do I just do everything myself? Ugh. I know I did. And when all is said and done, my guess is that you really just want to live the life of a successful business owner, make a difference and an impact in the world, and do something you love and make money doing it. And if this sounds at all like you, I'd like to invite you to check out my new training happening live next Wednesday, December 1st, 11:30 a.m. Eastern, 8:30 a.m. Pacific, how to grow your purpose-driven business without burnout, sleep deprivation, or meditation, or manipulation, or manifestation. All that removed, but still growing your purpose-driven business. In summary, this is the insider's guide to reviving your business for long-term success without the headaches. And in this new masterclass training, I'll cover how to be more strategically efficient and effective while balancing your business and your life. You can use these techniques to increase your revenue, be more consistent with your marketing and social media, and even get more time to work on your business and be more productive. I even show you how to instantly improve the effectiveness of your business by implementing a personal business life revival strategy. There's early bird pricing. So I'm mentioning this now because it's early bird pricing that will expire very soon. So Wednesday, December 1st, click the link in the comments to RSVP as well. I'm going to put it in the YouTube description as well too, the link to RSVP. It's on the Eventbrite page. Once you get to the Eventbrite page, you will click the link, get to the Eventbrite page, and then from there, you will be able to and we put it in. I actually put it in the screen too. It's QR code on the screen where you can use your phone to hop onto the page. And then once you put your phone up to the QR code, then you will also or click the link in the comments. But essentially it's bit.ly.com/Zami Vanessa. And then you'll be able to hop on, get a ticket or a grab ticket, right? And then the first option, if that's still available, hopefully you're seeing this before the option expires. But you'll grab, you say click one, right? Choose the amount of tickets you want, choose one, fill out your information, your name, all that jazz. And then from there, you hit submit, and there you go. You got a ticket. Bam. And you can pay via PayPal, or you can just input your card information. And then from there, you'll get your ticket. And then you also get access to a workbook as well as to we're going to go through some actionable insights, right? So I want you to take action. So there'll be a workbook as well for you to use during our time together next Wednesday, December 1st, 11:30 a.m. Eastern, to grow your purpose-driven business without burnout, sleep deprivation, or meditation. And also the ticket also gets you access to the replay as well. So make sure you sign up. bit.ly.com/Zami December, and the YouTube description, the link's in the YouTube description, and the link will be in the comments for those who are watching live as well. And chat with you soon. Yes, because really at the end of the day, this is what we're approaching 2022 now. And really, if you are thinking about saying no to your business, if you're thinking about quitting, this is not the time. Right? It's not the time for you to quit on your business. It's the time for you to keep moving forward. So I want you to hop on that link, do the phone to the QR code right on the screen and scan it and make sure you are grabbing that link and grabbing that ticket for you to grow your purpose-driven business without burnout, sleep deprivation, or meditation. It's not too late. You're only lost if you choose to be, right? And allow yourself to say, yes, I want to keep moving forward on my business, right? When you are at that feast table, whatever it is you're eating, right? And the people asking you, your friends or peers are asking you, how's business going? You can honestly say and tell them, you know what? I'm prepping for success in 2022 because you now have a ticket to this lovely event, right? So grow your purpose-driven business without burnout, sleep deprivation, or meditation. I look forward to seeing you Wednesday, December 1st, 11:30 a.m. Eastern. And in between then, remember, every Tuesday, 9 p.m. Eastern, Entrepreneurship is a marathon. Chat with you soon, and have a lovely, abundant week. Chat soon.